Hi folks, and welcome to part one of the shed build. I have no idea how many parts this series might be. I'm hoping as little as 2. Hopefully we're going to make fantastic progress today. I've already put an awful lot of work into getting the ground ready. I've got a bit of a shortcut. I'm sort of cheating. I've figured out a way that I think is going to be perfect for very rough and uneven allotment ground. It's around 12 o'clock on the 1st of November. The shed should arrive any minute. It looks really, really good. I cannot wait to show you. But first, before we get to the exciting bit where I show you the shed and we actually start putting it together, I'm going to show you a little bit of what I've been doing with this ground, because the prep work really is all important for a shed. So first, we're just going to start off with a bit of a time lapse of what I've done over the last few days, really, and I'm going to show you how it looked. It's very difficult to get across properly just how uneven this ground is, but today I've had to put an awful lot of time and effort into just getting it roughly profiled. I have around the outside of the shed just put in some slabs laid very roughly as a bit of a weed suppressant more than anything else. That one along the back is mainly just for access. Along here, the ground is still slightly raised, but that's going to be fine because once you've got the shed on timber bearers, you're going to be stepping up into it anyway. So if you're putting in a base that's going to raise the level of the shed, you do want to have a bit of a depression that you're putting the shed into. But that said, this area was so much higher than the back. The whole ground just sloped off so dramatically. So I've done a lot of work reprofiling, and it's very, very rough at the moment, but I'm hoping it's good enough. Oh boy, that is a lot of shed. I underestimated that. Thankfully, you will have seen there, I had an army of helpers. Loads of other people from the allotment pitched in and helped me move all of that. I do need a little rest, but I am so excited. Let me tell you a little bit about the shed and the plans. Now, unfortunately, my brain was a bit scrambled after moving all of that timber. I was very out of breath and got lots of details wrong. So this is the 10x6 Premium Pent shed from PowerSheds. There are links in the description. This isn't a sponsored video. I paid for this with my own money, but I did get a discount from the company in return for featuring them in this video. They haven't asked for anything other than honest opinions, and first off, I was so impressed with the quality of the timber. They've got 2 options for their sheds, standard and premium. The standard comes with a slightly smaller framing, just a surface treatment, and a 10-year guarantee, which is still pretty good, isn't it? And the premium has chunkier framing, more headroom, pressure treatment, and a better key lock, and I have gone for the premium option. I spent quite a long time thinking about what to do for this build, and I wanted something that was nice and chunky, was reliable, was going to last me years and years, maybe a little bit more than you'd normally go for on an allotment. I really didn't want something that was going to only last kind of 5 years. And this stuff looked perfect. This premium one comes with a 20-year guarantee, provided that you give it a reasonable treatment every year. Make sure that the upkeep is all right on the outside and it's all painted nice. Because of that, because of the tongue and groove floor, the tongue and groove roof, and the fact that this is pretty much pre-assembled, I just need to put it together, I thought this would be the perfect fit. Now let's talk a little bit about the base. You've got a lot of options when it comes to shed bases, but one of the key things about allotments, especially, no concrete allowed. You can almost never pour any kind of permanent structure. So you've got a few options, but generally you'd want to avoid timber on soil. Now, what I've done is I've bought the base kit, which basically looks like this. It's a load of loose timbers, and you put them together, and that is your frame for your flooring. Now, they say this is UC4 wood, rated to be fine for exterior use and in contact with the soil. I don't trust it. Now, that's not because of I don't trust the quality of the product or anything like that. It's just, for me, we got very wet clay soil. I've experienced wood rot on vulnerable structures like greenhouse bases before, and it is never, ever something that I want to deal with ever again. So my solution was something called a quick clamp system. Now, you don't have to buy a timber base for your shed. You can just get the flooring unit. You could put it on slabs or something like that. I was still a little bit nervous. Well, A, I'm lazy. I didn't want to try and get this ground perfectly level and then slab it. B, I didn't have the slabs as well. I've been looking frantically for slabs ever since I ordered this shed. Luckily, I found a few going in for £1 each on Facebook Marketplace the other day. So that's what I've used around the outside. As standard, you get these kind of stakes, basically, which they say that you can level your base with these, but I wouldn't really trust them for that, because when you put the weight of the shed on the frame, it's all going to probably sink until these are in contact with the ground. So the quick clamp system basically giant, great big ground screws, and then a bearing plate which sits on top of this. And basically, the idea is this goes into the ground, leaving about 6 inches at the top for leveling. And then on top of that, you put your little bracket, and then this bracket screws into the timbers. And basically, all of the weight of the shed, instead of being distributed on the stakes, is distributed on this 8-inch bearing plate. Now, this was an expensive solution, but I went for it because A, it means the timbers are going to be floating. They're not actually going to be touching the ground, which will really ensure longevity in these base timbers. And also it means leveling is super easy because basically you just put a big wrench on here and you can adjust these up and down. That's the theory anyway. So I'm going to get to work. Jess is just about to arrive with some refreshments and I'm going to put this base together. We'll see how it looks. So the shed base kit is from PowerSheds. I wanted to put together a fair demonstration of the product. That's us eating some Greggs, very important. So I thought it would make sense to try their own product. You can, of course, build your own. You don't have to use this one, but I was really impressed with how chunky it was. It is a slightly unusual design. The way that this goes together isn't exactly the same as other shed bases might be. You sort of double up on the outside edges, which is a little strange, but it all went together perfectly fine. A quick shout out for the website. The shed base on the website is fantastic. When you select the different sizes, it actually shows you your configuration, which is such a small thing, but really important. Once the brackets were in the bottom, we could get those spikes installed, flip it over, which was a little tricky. And then as night fell, we managed to get it in its final position. Good morning, folks. Night dawned very quickly yesterday. We ran out of time, but it's day 2. It's bright and early, 9 o'clock in the morning, Saturday, dreamy. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'm nervous to say this out loud, but I'm hoping I'll be able to get this done today, at least in the most part. You know, I want to get the roof on and maybe a few of the finishing touches might not be quite there, but I'm hoping to get the majority of this done today. It's a bold claim. We'll see how far I get. Now, you might notice this looks a little bit different from how we left it last night. All of the paneling has gone down onto the frame. 2 reasons. One, I wanted to put a little bit of pressure on the frame, see if it sort of helped all the ground anchors get in. I'll talk about those in a minute. But the main thing is I really underestimated just how many panels there would be and how much space this would take up. So you will have seen, you know, I've had to stack a lot of the panels up against that tree at the back. A lot were just laid down on here, but this is a communal path and didn't really seem decent to leave all of my stuff just everywhere in the communal space. So I thought a bit more polite, and just in case, you know, I couldn't get down super early, I'd stack it all back up. And it will give me a bit of a chance as well to go through, and because we were in such a rush yesterday, just getting everything here, give me a bit of time to go through and take stock of which panels are which, what's going where, and that kind of thing. In terms of structure, I've got that in mind. The door is going to go roughly here, nice access along the main path. I'm going to have a window on here, and I'm going to have a window at the back there because this is south facing, so that will allow the most light, and it means it will be nice and relatively private from the main path. Now, I have spent a bit more time working with this now, and I must say, first impressions, the timber quality, stunning, absolutely immaculate. One of the things about me, okay, so I don't have a van or anything, and quite often if I need timber, I have to get it delivered. One of the things about timber delivery is you're generally going to get the stuff that's been lying around the yard for a while, the stuff that's got the defects, the imperfections. All of this, every single piece, every bit of stud work, framing, all of the tongue and groove, cladding, immaculate. I've not seen a single negative mark on here. It all looks really, really good. Another nice thing, this is pressure treated wood. Normally when you get pressure treated wood delivered, it's sopping wet, you know, still full of the chemicals. This isn't too bad. It's well on its way to dry. The timber base was definitely quite wet, but the actual shed itself, really, really nice. And I just cannot believe the quality of the framing. This is basically, on here, CLS grade timber. So really, really nice, sturdy, thick. And that's one of the things you get with the premium model. And this morning, when I was getting something out of the shed, I snapped a quick picture of the internal framing on one of my cheap sheds back home in the garden. And it just doesn't compare. They're like matchsticks in comparison. This thing is going to be rock solid. I'm so excited. So the next thing for me to do, work on the base. First impressions of these ground anchors, really, really good. I was a little bit nervous, to be honest. I didn't know how much these bearing plates were going to actually support the frame. It's one of the reasons I wanted to put all this weight on it, to give it a little bit of a see if it shifted or anything. It all seems fine, but I do need to adjust it all. First thing for me to do, get all this stuff back off, and then we'll start to have a proper tinker with the base, get it nice and level. Now, before we get started, actually, there is something I wanted to say. One of the things I wanted to test with this is really how much you can do it as a one-man band, you know, like how much you need help. Obviously, everything recommends, you know, 2 people at all times, but a lot of people, you know, you can't always have someone there to help. I will say you probably could have moved it as a one-man band. The way it arrives is on a pallet. It's like a flat pack piece of furniture. It's incredibly efficient. It means they can put it on the pallet network basically, and it just arrives on a pallet. Really, really cool. And the whole thing is kind of screwed in with cross braces. So you can individually, every kind of side panel is screwed. So you can undo it bit by bit if you're a one-man band, but just moving this quantity of timber, very, very tricky by yourself. You can move them. They're not light, but you can do it by yourself. I'm unsure how much of this I will actually be able to put together with it just being me, especially once you start putting the side panels on. I probably will need a second pair of hands to keep everything stable, but we're going to try. I'm going to try and do as much as a one-man band just because I want to show you whether or not it's possible. Okay, now time to get the spirit level out and adjust all of these. So I thought I'd just show you how these plates work. This one I've loosened up, but you can see basically if this piece of timber is too high, if it's not level, then we just unscrew this. Means it can then be pushed in deeper. If you want to raise it, that's when you need to get a spanner on here, and you can turn it to raise it, but it's going to get pretty tough pretty quick. But it is possible in theory. Once it starts to bite, it is interesting how much it is just going to raise this as opposed to compressing the ground. These seem to work really, really well so far. So I've just got to go around all of these with the spirit level, make sure it's nice and plumb. Once the tinkering was done, it was time to start working on the floor, the first part of the actual shed build. Now, this is super simple. There's 3 panels there, and you just pre-drill along the joists and then screw them in together. But although it was simple, I did make my first mistake. As I flip it over there, I realized I haven't lined up the tongue and groove boards on the other side. So unfortunately, I had to unscrew them, flip that round, and then they lined up much nicer. This was unbelievably difficult to flip by myself. That was very, very heavy. Little lie down there. But we did get it done. And then you add these super heavy duty bearers on the edge, and they're gonna take the weight of the wall. Screw those in with super heavy duty 10 centimeter long screws. Make sure it's all nice and level. Little bit of final adjustment. Screw them into the base when we're happy. Double check the instructions just in case. And then try and fail to put up the first 2 pieces of wall by yourself. So I can confirm getting the first 2 panels up is not a one-person job. You absolutely, I could not figure out a way to do it one person, even with clamps, but fantastic progress. We have one side assembled. It took a lot of head scratching to figure out exactly which panels were going to go where. Everything is modular. Same with all of these side panels. You've got 2-foot panels and 4-foot panels basically. What I think I probably should have done is put this on the outside edge. That's actually how PowerSheds do it on their assembly video, but I followed the layout of the base. Fantastic progress. All I've got to do now, another corner piece here. And what is great is these come with little kind of noggins on the bottom. These little blocks that you hammer off, they're travel blocks, and that's really good. And that's because the tongue and groove is designed to overlap the outside edge, which is fantastic. Makes framing all of this piece of cake. But it does mean that if you're moving this around, you can put all the weight of this panel on a tiny little bit of tongue and groove, which then it will break and snap. Because this tongue and groove just overlaps so nicely, I think time for a temporary diagonal screw outside. That will hold it, and then we just gotta go around the whole thing like that. Oh, exciting. Now I think this was probably the most enjoyable part of the build. It was so satisfying to see this come together and so easy to put together as well. The door, this was amazing. I was really worried about this potentially being a little tricky, a little awkward. I've tried to hang doors indoors before, said doors too many times, but you know, proper in-house doors are a real pain, and this was so easy. Just pop it in the middle, put some screws in. I love here, you can see just how chunky that framing is. It really does look so good, and the door framing too, very, very nice. Stopping for a bit of lunch, very important. Here, the first window panel is going in, and I actually changed my mind. I put that in and then swapped them round because I thought it was just going to work better this way. And that is one of the good things about this build. It is so modular. Obviously, it's better to plan first, but you can just make it up as you go along. As you can see there, I've gone for both windows at one end of the shed, which does mean there's a dark end, but this is kind of maximum light and maximum privacy. Now, so far, so good. I've had 1 or 2 hitches. There is one bit of the base where I have made a mistake. It just sits ever so slightly proud. The panels are maybe a centimetre out. One of them just sits a little bit high. I think that will be completely fine. I do not think it's the end of the world. The other main thing is that I didn't start off with clamps, and what I found is where this is, you know, it's all, I think it's really nice premium wood, but at the end of the day it is still softwood. And what I found is using a high-powered drill, the screws don't necessarily pull pieces of timber nice and tightly together. So quite often the screw will start burrowing in to the timber, but it won't necessarily pull the other piece, the second piece that it's going into. They won't come tight. So because of that, you can end up having a little gap that you kind of bake into the build. You know, once you've got a screw in and there's a gap, that's it. You know, you've got to take the screw out, all the screws out, then clamp it and then re-screw it. And I've had to do that in a few places, but using clamps to get it all nice and tight throughout putting up the wall panels has been completely fine. User error more than anything, you know, just something to be aware of. The other thing that I'm slightly mindful of is from the path, this looks a little brutalist because I haven't put a window in these 2 sides, mainly because I did want a little bit of privacy, especially if I'm filming, but also this is the shady side. That's the main reason I've done it. I think I'll pretty it up a little bit. I'll probably have some plants in front of it, and I'm gonna build a little fence at the front there, so you won't see as much of the shed. Anyway, I'm probably worrying over nothing. But now we have the moment of truth, where it's time to see if the final panel fits. I'm really hoping it does. There's no reason it shouldn't, but you know what it's like. You never know. You know, see how I'm leaning it back? That's to make sure the weight is in the right place. It does look awkward though. Okay, it's a little bit jammed. I think it'll be okay. Give it a push. All right, it's tight. Okay, abort. It's not going simply. Oh, it's heavy. It's very heavy, folks. Oh, I caught it. Just about. Don't drop it. Oh, that was scary. There was a little moment there. I think I just caught it before it touched the ground. Hello and welcome to the shed. We're in the shed. It's got 4 walls. No roof yet though, so doesn't really count as being inside the shed. But I just wanted to mention the gap situation is exactly what we had here. And because of that gap sort of forcing this panel out slightly actually, and there being a gap down here, that is exactly why this wouldn't fit in. So I've undone these screws, and now we've got all of these in. We've got it gripped exactly where it matters. Fantastic. I was maybe expecting to get a little bit more done today, but I have spent a lot of time today helping out some plot neighbours with some other bits and bobs. So I don't think I'm going to get the roof on today, but we're going to carry on. We're on for about 2:30 now, so there's still plenty of time. 3:15 actually, not quite as much time as I was hoping, but very, very impressed so far and so excited to be in here. This is a very good size. I was a little bit worried that, you know, you always want it a little bit bigger, don't you, with a shed or a greenhouse or a polytunnel, anything to do with gardening, you always wish you went bigger, but this looks really formidable. From outside especially, it looks pretty chunky, so I am very, very happy. I think the windows are in a great location, and it feels just amazing to have 4 walls on here now. I can't wait to get the roof on. And so far it's been fairly easy. Certainly a 2-man job. This is not a 1-person job. I've been foolish, but you know, I wanted to see how much I could do with one. And apart from getting the first 2 bits up, it is doable. It is doable with one, but I wouldn't recommend it. Certainly I would not recommend it. I'm gonna carry on going and see how much roof I can get done today. So from the path, look at that. It looks so, so good. I don't think it's going to take me long to get the roof on today and do the finishing touches, but we'll see. There's a few little pieces left. There's a roof panel there. There's one up against that tree as well, which you actually can't see. And there is all of this. Now this is all stuff for the barge boards and the vertical lats. Now the vertical lats are kind of like the finishing touch. Once we've got the roof on, you go down all of these joins between the panels and you put in a little vertical piece running down. These have actually fit together pretty nicely, I would say. You do get a few little gaps here and there, and this is just going to stop any water ingress or water kind of getting sponged up by the board and running along. Now the reason we didn't get the roof on yesterday, Jess did come and help for a little bit, which was brilliant, but I was a little confused because the video I was following, this looked very different from the model on the video, and the 8-foot wide Pent has an overhang at the front, but the 6-foot does not. It's more of a flat top. So that's what kind of held things up and got me a little bit confused. Around the back here, we will have an overhang, and this is where I'm gonna eventually put a gutter in, and that is then gonna gutter along to a water butt collection, sort of where that blue one is. I must prevent myself, I must not be tempted to stack water butts along here. I really want to leave this little path just to access, to paint, to do any necessary repair or maintenance jobs on the shed. I'm really, really pleased with how the base has come together and how it's all held up. You can see that's the timber base that we've constructed on, the metal plates, and then the little floor joists of the shed there. It all looks really good, and I have no doubt because this is floating, it's going to last for quite a long time. I do still want to put some membrane down around the outside and kind of tuck it in a little bit, and as well I might do a bit of mesh defense to stop things digging in here, foxes and badgers and that kind of thing. One other thing I just wanted to mention, oh, look at these windows, so good. Not that though, the tools and everything they give you, the supplies, the fixings. I have got so many. I got quite a few comments from people saying, oh, be careful. One of the things you got to be careful with prefabs is, you know, they don't give you enough tools to do a proper job. I've got this entire box of screws is barely touched, and I've been following the recommendations, and in many cases kind of doubling up on screws just to be safe. And there's still all this, so absolutely fantastic. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show you. God, it just looks so good, doesn't it? I just keep standing back and admiring it. I'm so excited. Now, look at this. Proper lock on here, and 5 keys. 5 keys, that is so good. Can give lots of spares to neighbors and that kind of thing. But this actually is a small issue for an allotment shed. Oh, it's so chunky. I love this door, and it went on, you know, just so easy. Now, this is super chunky, super secure, which is fantastic. But for an allotment shed like mine, on a site where we have lots of break-ins, I do need to put a latch on as well to stop it doing this. But we can just prop it open for now with a fork. Now, yes, because we get lots and lots of break-ins, I actually want to leave this shed open, which might sound a bit mad, but it's very, very common on allotments because I would rather that someone came along, wandered into my shed, had a route around, stole stuff if they wanted to, because I would rather replace things. You know, you don't leave anything valuable in here is the idea. You take everything valuable home, because otherwise, if it's locked, they will just do all sorts of damage to your shed. They will take a crowbar to it, they'll take a saw to it, sometimes they bring power tools down, and they will just cut around your lock. And that is gonna be a hell of a lot more pain and difficulty to replace and repair than actually having stuff taken. So this is a bit of an issue because at the moment, the only option I have is to lock it if I want the door closed. So I'm probably just gonna install a little latch on the outside, you know, a little one that just goes across, and it means the door will hold shut. I just love the feeling of stepping inside here. You hear the audio start to change. It's the same when you build a greenhouse and you start to get the glass in and you get the reverb coming around. Oh, starting to feel like a real room. I absolutely love it. Right, let's get this roof on. This is just one panel, so it should be super simple. It just goes on like this. You don't have to do any joinery or anything like that. Oh, look at this. I do wish I'd put down some like floor protecting mats or something. I'm gonna have to give this a really good scrub. It looks so clean when I was putting it together, but yeah, not clean anymore. Because this is a 6-foot panel, it comes pre-assembled, basically just one solid piece. On some of the other larger models, you have to kind of piece together different roof panels to make it complete and then hoist it up and get it screwed in. But should be simple enough, just sits on top, screw into the gable end, screw up through here, and then we can start felting and doing all that fun stuff. So they're super heavy, but comfortable enough to get up by yourself. And what I've got to do now is just go outside, check it all lines up along the back, so it's all parallel. The roof is fortunately one of those places where you can get a clamp on the outside, pull everything in nice and tight. On the corners especially, it can be quite tricky to find purchase for a clamp, but the way that this is built open, it's quite nice. Get a nice tight join. Here's another amazing little touch. In the instruction booklet, you get a drill bit included. I haven't used this because obviously I've got my own drill and I didn't need any bits, but I always just love these little touches sometimes that you get from companies. Just a little nice bit of attention to detail. This is where it starts to feel really, really exciting, and the whole thing just solidifies as well. This is the final piece of the puzzle. Hopefully it fits nice and snugly. Okay, it's on the snug side of snug, which is good, I think. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, there we go. Roof's on. Well, folks, fantastic news. The roof has gone on very nicely. It is now solid as a rock. Now, unfortunately, we've run into the first kind of tricky part of the build. The first thing that's, had me a little confused, really, and that is right along the top, there's basically no overhang. It's not even flat. It's actually slightly further back. The roof is in some places flat, in some places slightly further back than the front of the shed. And this is giving me concern about water ingress. The companies say this is fine, this is by design, but they do have different models. Some of them, they have much more of an overhang at the front, 70 mil at the front, 7 centimeters, and that's what you've got at the back. Now this has just got me a little bit nervous because what you're meant to do is felt along the top here, along the front, and clout nail into these, which just doesn't seem that secure to me. I don't know. I'm sure it's probably fine, but this is the sort of thing where you really want to, if you've paid this kind of money for a shed, you want to make sure it's going to last forever and ever. So I see no harm in just basically, I'm going to go out, get an extra bit of timber and batten along the front here, just to bring it out a little bit more and give it a little bit more protection from the elements, to make sure that there's no water ingress that's going to want to drip down sort of the inside and the back of the cladding. That's what I'm worried about. I think it just feels like the right thing to do, just to bring it out a little further, because certainly as you get towards that end, there is not much clearance whatsoever. I'm also going to get a bit of sealant, a bit of kind of roof felt sealant for felting the roof, just for a little bit of added security, I will say the felt does look super, super good. They've got a product demo of this on the site, but they use kind of proper backed felt, and I've been trying to rip it a little bit, and sometimes it feels like it's just about to go, but it doesn't. It is really, really strong. I've done my fair share of shed refelting, and normally the stuff you work with, you can just shred like paper. That thing looks super, super sturdy. So I just think it's worth just me putting a little bit on the extra. I did think about using one of these lats, which normally goes on after you felt. So normally you bring the felt down across that, and then you put the batten over the top of the felt. But I just feel like this is going to get so much water kind of dripping down and potentially then running into the top of the tongue and groove. So just a little extra precaution. I said at the start this was going to be completely honest, and this is the next problem that I had with the build. So you can see me lining up there soffits. Now the soffit is 70 mil wide, and the overhang from the rafters is meant to be 70 mil wide as well. You can see right at the end, the raft there is lined up with the end of the gable. So there is no reason that there is this overhang. You can see the added lip on the soffit there, which meant I couldn't fit the barge board on. And in the end, I just had to leave out the soffits from the build. I really couldn't figure out why this was, and the fact that there wasn't enough rafter overhang at the back, and there wasn't quite enough at the front, led me to believe that maybe something had just gone slightly wrong with this build. It was really minor in the grand scheme of things. I've just left them open, and it's vented, but it does mean I need to seal them to stop wasps or bats or birds or whatever from nesting in the shed. Hello folks, right, so we're on the final straight. So far the build has been seamless. Everything has been absolutely perfect. The base was perfect. All the walls, absolutely perfect, completely mint. The roof, perfect. I had a little bit of an issue with the overhang, and then I've had an issue with the soffits. I think it's just one of those very small things. And then I've had to spend a long time scratching my head going around trying to figure out where bits of lat go where the barge boards go and all that kind of thing. And to be honest, there's a few puzzles that I've not quite figured out, but in the grand scheme of things, very, very minor. So it's time to do the felt. Now, instead of measuring it, I've laid it out to make sure that, you know, I don't get my numbers wrong, because I'm not the best. Thankfully, absolutely no issues with the roof whatsoever. And one of the benefits of being a slightly shorter guy, nice and easy for me to clamber around on the roof. It could take my weight just fine. One really nice thing was that there was absolutely plenty of roofing felt, and like I say, this stuff is really strong. That adhesive, probably not necessary, just a nice little extra. So the finishing touches are these barge boards, which are just going to cover up. Now, this is the bit where I've modified it, and obviously this is going to be much easier to get into the piece of CLS that I've put at the front here, rather than having to just go into the kind of timber rafters of the roof. And looking at it now, I do feel like maybe it would have been okay without that extra bit of timber, but I wanted to be safe. This is really starting to look very smart. So I've got to do barge boards around the top, a little bit of trimming of some of the excess that I've got on the roof felt, and then putting in the vertical lats, and we're done. Right then, folks, the verticals are in, the barge boards are on, I've trimmed all that felt. It looks amazing. I'm so pleased. There's still quite a lot of finishing touches. To be honest, this is probably 95% done. I need to kind of seal the windows. I obviously need to paint it, but there's a few other little bits and bobs, you know, this fixing the lats around the bottom, covering up the cut ends of the timbers. I want to put on my old slate sign. This thing needs to go back on. It's just a nice little a nod to the previous tenant who had this plot, and you know, whose shed I recently destroyed. Bit of a little something to nod to them, and you know, everything they put into this plot previously. I am over the moon. You've seen a pretty honest, you know, first impressions of this shed, the good and the bad, but 99% of it is good. I have been amazed at the quality of this thing. Everyone who has come past has commented on it. Everyone has kind of stepped in, had a little look and gone, oh my goodness. Like, they've normally used slightly more foul language, but everyone is really impressed. And when I tell them the price as well, they're very surprised. People are coming up saying, oh, this must have cost you 1,800, 2 grand, something like that. The retail price for this I'll put on screen. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for an allotment shed, but this thing will still be here in 20 years. It's guaranteed to still be here in 20 years, so long as you keep on top of the maintenance and painting it. They come with a 20-year guarantee from PowerSheds, and this thing is solid as a rock. You can do pull-ups on this thing, pull-ups for days. That was something made a noise then, but it was something falling over outside on the other side of the shed. I was like, oh no, is it falling down? But what a dream, what a dream. I'm so excited about what's to come. There's still lots for me to do around the outside as well as painting this. I've got to sort out a door latch. I've got to do a bit of landscaping, put a fence up. I've got to get some weed membrane under here as well and level out a load of the slabs around the back. So this is just the start of the kind of shed project proper for me, but I did manage to get this build done in one video. What an accomplishment. No more 10 video series, JB. Like the greenhouse and the polytunnel. But yes, more to come. I'm so excited to start kind of shelving in here. I want to build some shelving units or something like that. It'd be really nice to get some solar power set up, that kind of thing. A space for the kettle, definitely. Just a little solar power to have some light or something in there would be really nice. And somewhere to sit and look out of this window across the plot. I'm so excited. I can't believe it's finally done. Oh, thank you ever so much for watching. A massive thank you to PowerSheds for the discount on this product. Like I say, I did spend quite a lot of my own money, but also a big thank you to all of my patrons who have helped me pay for this, and some of the donators who contributed through Ko-fi and PayPal and that kind of thing. So massive thank you to everyone, especially my Chili Pepper tier patrons, Tony, Bill, Pam, Mel, Michael, Socks, Angela, Dorcas, or Louise, Andre, and Brett. Really hope you enjoyed this one, folks, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. Oh, I've got something in my eye. Oh, it's really hard. I was trying to hold it together at the end there.